Welcome to the Tuning In podcast, where we talk alignment, intuition, and our internal guidance system. We cover woo-woo topics in an approachable and practical way. I'm your host, Dana Evans of Alignful.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. I left you behind for 2 weeks. I was in Mexico and just didn't have it in me to record, though I did bring my microphone. But man, I had such an amazing trip, and I actually shared some reflections on my Instagram feed about just what it was like to travel with she's kind of my sister-in-law. Cuñada is the Spanish word for it. She's my brother's long-term girlfriend. And she is a splenic 1-4 manifester. And it was such an aligned trip for both of us. So it was some good R&R for me. I would say I didn't relax as much as I played. And she and I kind of had nonstop chatting and conversation. But it was interesting. If you guys listened to the episode after the Lake Tahoe trip, I was so freaking exhausted. But coming home from this trip to Mexico, we were gone for 11 days, and I did not come home feeling overly tired or overly depleted of my energy. Now, granted, I needed quiet time. I got home Wednesday night, and then Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday, I was like, okay, I needed some quiet time, but I just didn't feel sapped in the same way. But it's interesting because I didn't have a lot of time to process during the trip because we were kind of active and engaged, and it was beautiful. But when I came home, I had a lot of deep realizations hit me, which of course dropped me into a big release cycle. And I was a little bit moody, aka crying, and a little emotional. Just some awareness that kind of showed up out of the blue. And I was like, whoa, that's been lurking. And it just goes to show the power of letting your body play, letting your body rest, and not always doing the work. I spend a lot of time processing, reflecting, looking at myself, at my relationships, at my life, at my business. And it was so fun to just go on a trip for the fun of it and just play. And then giving my mind, it's like that reflection part got to turn off for a little bit. And then I got to come home with no effort and have a lot of awareness come through and bubble up. So it was beautiful. It was intense. And I'm so glad we got that trip in for sure. So that's just a little update. And then this week, sorry, I'm yawning. I actually haven't slept well for the past 2 nights, even though I haven't really had alcohol. I've been getting to bed early. I've had a little trouble sleeping, so excuse my yawn. But this week on the podcast, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about vacation. And specifically, as I've been traveling more, how I kind of see the issues maybe with our current practices of vacation. But before I get to that, I wanted to mention the new moon was on Sunday. So August 8th was the new moon, 8/8, the Lion's Gate portal. And I did a yoga class yesterday. So the yoga class was so beautiful. It's the practice that I have an online membership for. It's like a primal movement. It's very beautiful movement. And Alicia is the owner of the studio and who I practiced with yesterday. And it's called Daily Ritual. And you can go to dailyritual.live to see all of their offerings. But we did kind of a new moon practice, and it was so fun. But I didn't want to do it. I felt like I was so busy. I felt like I had so many things to do. Right? I had just gotten back on Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday I didn't get a lot done. And I was like, I have all these things to do. I can't take time for yoga. But of course, my body wanted yoga. And of course, it was such an aligned class. And she spoke a little bit about the new moon. And one of the simple questions that she asked, and I'll pose it to you all and then read my answers that I wrote, is, what are you calling in this new moon? And I'm pretty sure the new moon is all about what you want to invite in, and the full moon is all about what you want to shed and let go of. And if I'm wrong, whatever, I wrote about what I want to call in. So it was interesting because it was very free flowing. I was in a very good space to be sitting down and breathing and moving. And then I just had this inspiration, like kind of right at the beginning of our practice, to just pause and write. And what I wrote for what I'm calling in is, I'm calling in spaciousness in my body and heart through movement, simple, healthy, nourishing food, and nourishing practices. I am looking to go slow and deep in my workspace with mindful, distraction-free focus work each day, and also mindful, distraction-free focus time with myself each day. And actually how I'm looking to set that up is having, and this will be fluid, of course, it's me, but having about 2 hours each day, likely early in the morning, where I have like deep work, where I have no distractions, no phone, no email, and just do some deep work, whether it's recording a podcast, whether it's doing coaching, whether it's writing or creating videos for my Insight program, any of that. And then 90 minutes of, for lack of better words, personal development time. That might look like doing a yoga class, right? Going on a walk, journaling, sitting by the water, doing some work for one of the programs or courses that I'm in, or reading one of my books. And that felt like a really beautiful way to spend 3.5 hours of my days. So slow, deep workspace. And a lot of that time will be in my soon to be office, currently my closet. And I'm turning my closet into an office, aka a cloffice, which is an isolated place at the back of my house where I will be able to work without being interrupted. And then further calling in, focus on connection, appreciation, and what is working in my relationship through money and abundance, and in my business. That one feels really yummy. Just focusing on what is working. And one of the practices that I'm doing for myself every day is, at the end of the day, I'm actually spending some time just in bed thinking about all of the beautiful things that have gone well, in particular in my relationship. So I'm reflecting back on, what were the things that I appreciated about John today? Like, what nice things did he say to me? What did he do for me? How did I feel connected to him? And then I'm extending that into other areas of my life as well. And finally, I wrote, trust and allow, move with life, not against it. So that is what I'm calling in this new moon, this Lionsgate portal. It feels really yummy to me. And I'm also calling in some new clients. So many things have unfolded. Okay, we're going to have a change of plans, everyone. This is like mid-episode. I'm not going to cover that topic today about gear shifting in and out of vacation mode, because I think this is just going to be a full update episode. And then I have this gear shifting in and out of vacation mode scheduled that I'll talk about. And then I also have one about turning to yourself for answers and relief versus turning to others. And so I think I'll record those as separate episodes so it's not muddied by all of these updates. Sound good? Okay. So this should be a shorter episode as I'm just talking to you, because it's been 2 weeks and it feels like a lot longer. So calling in new clients. So one of the things that kind of came through to me after Mexico was this awareness of, even though I have so much space in my life, I still have a bit of trouble turning off. And I like to be very available to people in my life, especially clients, right? I like to be available. And even if I'm not actively responding to people, like, I find that I'm holding a lot of energetic space for people in my life, whether that's friends or family members or clients, or just like, I don't know, whatever, other just people in my life. I care deeply about my people. I really, really do. And I love that. And I've created a life where I get to have so much beautiful, deep connection every single day. And I'm aware that sometimes I overextend my connection and don't give myself connection back to self. hence wanting to spend 90 minutes a day, like with self on some sort of whatever, personal time every day, personal development, doing programs I like, reading the books I like, doing work for programs, that type of thing, or just like enjoying time with myself. But what came through was, oh, I can kind of structure my business in this way as well. I'm constantly looking for ways, as I help my clients do as well, as how is your business integrated into your life and how is your life integrated into your business? So it's not either or. And we're looking for ways that they can flow together versus being in competition. And of course, one of the main ways is through making space in your life and in your business so that both aren't bursting at the seams all the time, right? A lot of people have a super full active social life and a super full work life, and then there's no space for spontaneity. There's no space for reflection. There's no space to feel into decisions. There's no space to tune into what you need. So that's one of the big ways we help actually to merge life and business is by creating space in both. Isn't that beautiful? And so as I'm thinking about that in my own life and my own business, I had this awareness, and that is, oh, I don't want to be doing active coaching in December. It just like came through to me. And I can logicize all of the reasons why that is. Of course, there's a lot of holidays, there's a lot of family events, there's just travel, both for clients and myself. And there's a lot of upheaval, I think, at that time of year, and also a lot of desire to just kind of do what feels right. Like I know clients with kids, the kids have breaks. I have family in different areas. I like to visit family. I also like to just have time to spend with my parents and just doing more like wintry things, right? Winter kind of calls you inward. But with like holiday season, there's also a lot of energy. So every December, truthfully, I'm always playing with the two, like the energy and the desire to just be called in. And so I thought, okay, so if it feels right to not have one-to-one clients in December, what does that look like for the rest of the year? And it dawned on me that that means that I am calling in the few magical, right, perfect people to work with me, who want to work with me, who get to work with me over the next 3 months, starting in September. Isn't that crazy? Because it's a 3-month program, so it'd be September, October, November. And I would start everyone anyone who joins me, we'd start the second week of September. That's the week of the 13th, because I will be on vacation before that. So I just want to put that out there, because if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that I only take on a very few clients at a time, like 4 to 5, because I pour a lot into them and we go so deep. Oh my gosh. Like it's it's hard to talk about because the work is so profound and it's so beautiful and intense and magical and transformational, because we're doing so much with creating space and questioning and looking at life through a different lens, which is through inside first, right? Then outside. In fact, I was talking to a client the other day and she said, I feel like I've always had an arrow, right, pointed externally of like, what's next? What's next? She said, now all of a sudden I don't have that arrow and it feels scary. And I'm like, yeah. But what's happening is we're taking the arrow and actually pointing it inward. So instead of like up and out, we're going down and in. Up and out would be like future goals, and up is the mind. And down and in is right into the body, and downward, right? Inward. What do you need? What do you want? What is your inner voice calling for you? And it's beautiful work. We do so much work with energy and breath, and it's like expanding the space that you take up, right? While creating space for yourself. And I don't know, it's so beautiful. So if you're, especially like leading into the holidays, if you're at all feeling like, God, that's a time when I lose myself. Yeah, I know. So do many of us. That means that it's a good opportunity for you to work with me. And we can be really in depth in you and focus on you over the next 3 months. So if that feels at all exciting to you, I'm actually going to create, I think, an application because I'm really mindful of who I work with because of the depth and energy that we exchange. And it wants to feel like a very aligned yes for both. So if you're curious, I would love to jump on a call with you. So just send me an email to dana@alignful.com, or you can send me a DM on Instagram. My Instagram is at Dana_Evans, because then it's easier for me to just chat with you and find out where you're at. Then we can figure out if this is a good match for you and for me. And if we're going to take this step together, I see it like as I'm picturing this, it's like we hold hands and then it's like we jump over the rainbow. And I always joke that I'm your buoy because we go really deep and it can be a lot of intensity and emotions, but through that comes so much freedom and lightness. And I stay and be the buoy for you throughout that whole process. So I am just so excited. I have 4 spots open, and I'm not kidding. That's the maximum number of people that I will take so that we can go on this journey together. So if you're curious, send me an email, shoot me a DM, and we'll talk. Gosh, things are just evolving and it's so beautiful. So last night I was falling asleep, but not really. I told you I had trouble falling asleep. And my mind was like, oh, here's a fun way to describe what you do. I was like, I better write this down so I don't forget. I wrote, I help people slow down and create space in their life so they can process their shit, move through the discomfort, and move forward without the emotional baggage of the past. Whoa. There you go. I think that's a really accurate description of what we're up to in the Insight one-to-one coaching. And yeah, it's cool stuff. So let me know if you're interested in that. I do have a 1-month version of that, Insight Light. And I've had a couple of people do that with like really magical results. So either way, I'm not going to force you into any sort of commitment. Nothing's forced at all in here because, as you know, I only like to work in the highest alignment for myself and those involved. And if you're one of those people, I'm so excited to create magic together. Okay, so man, we're covering so much. Mexico, new moon, what I'm calling in the clients, taking December off. This year has just been such an explosion for me of like living into a different version of myself. In fact, I've had to tell quite a few people and even my clients that the amount of travel that I have done this year is unprecedented. Like, if you have only known me this year, you think, gosh, Jana just loves traveling. She travels all the time. No, this has not ever been really my way of living. There were a couple trips that I would take every year, like a week max. And then John and I used to do a lot more like weekend trips in Colorado. But the amount of travel I've done this year has far exceeded any other year. And it's like both in quantity of trips and length of the trips, because most of my trips now are like 10 days at minimum. So it's been really interesting for me to live into that as well. And the summer in particular, I've gotten to travel. And I'll just share a little story with you. So for years, I worked at, this is the concept, by the way, of having what you always wanted, right? And remembering when you used to want the things that you now have. It's a really beautiful practice of like gratitude and appreciation when you look at your life in that way. Like, remember, I do this with Mia, my cat. Like, I'm like, remember when I desperately wanted a gray cat? Like I did for years. I just wanted a gray cat. And like now I have her and she's so integrated in my life. But that's not to be taken for granted because there were years when I desperately wanted that. And so it's really beautiful to look at life that way. Remember when I wanted what I now have. And for me, that was to have a summer of freedom. So all of my life, I mean, as soon as let's see, I was 12 when I started working, okay? And I started babysitting for this family down the street all summer long. The parents worked full time. And so I would get dropped off at their house at like early, like 7 or 8 a.m. I don't remember it. I remember it being early, and come home at like 4. And I remember they paid me $120 a week. And I was their sitter like all summer. And then, of course, in high school, I was a waitress, and I worked at quite a few different places in high school all summer long and after school and on the weekends. And then in college, I always worked in the summer. I also worked while I was going to college on the weekends. I worked at the Sports Club LA in Boston, a super fancy, like, celebrity sports club. It was really fun. And then all summer, of course, I would come home and I would work. And then I got into the working world and worked. Then you don't have summers off anyway, and I worked. And then at that company, I became like in charge of this. We would run this wellness program for this company. And then we would also do this international fulfillment project. So the program would be in May, and then we would like calculate all the winners and order all the stuff. And then June and July and August is when we would be fulfilling. And I was literally every summer for quite a few years there working in a warehouse, manual labor, like packing boxes, massive headaches, working with FedEx, working with return shipments, taking emails from like Germany and, oh my God, India, all over the frickin' world, trying to figure out how to get things shipped, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of boxes. And each box had like 20 prizes. And it was such a headache, and it killed me. And then like at the end of every August, I would want to quit that job. But then in September, the first week of September, I always went on my vacation to Rhode Island, which is where I'm going here in a couple of weeks with my cousins. And we had Cousins Week in Rhode Island, and that would like reset me. And then I'd be like, I'd have like a renewed stance in life that I could make it again. And then I'd forget, it's probably like childbirth. I would forget how horrible that fulfillment project was. And then I'd go through it again the next year. And it was like a really rough cycle. And so then even after I quit that company, I ended up still working with them and running the project for a couple of years. And it was actually during that project that the name Alignful was born. It was on June 14th. I literally have it in my calendar. I was talking to my brother because he was helping me. We were like mindlessly folding t-shirts and putting them in boxes and counting the sizes. And then I was like, I need a business name. I need a business name. And I'd been wondering for a week. And then all of a sudden, Alignful came to me. And that night I bought the domain. That was 3 years ago. Anyway, so last summer was like, I think I participated in the project last summer. And so this is literally my first summer ever that I've had a summer. And boy, did I take advantage of this. I mean, I have had so much travel, so much fun, so much spaciousness this summer. And I'm really kind of forcing myself, not in a bad way, but to be present to, wow, remember when I wanted this. Doesn't mean I'm like looking at my calendar. My calendar's been pretty full, but I've had way more space than I ever did and way more freedom. And so I'm in so much awe and excitement that like it's happening. It's like when you're losing weight and you don't see the changes, but then someone like who you haven't seen for a little bit sees you and like, oh my God, you look great. It's happening. I'm creating what I want in life. Like it's slow. It feels like it's slow, but it's also happening. And it would be a disservice to myself, to my business, to my clients, to everything if I didn't pause to recognize like, oh my God, this is so cool. So I've had this spacious summer and now I'm taking it further. Like, well, I always wished that I could not have to work in December because oddly enough, that same project that would run in May, December and January were the most stressful times for that project because we were like preparing everything. And so I didn't get to enjoy my winter much. And so now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what if I could just take December off for the most part? And all of these ideas are just coming through of what's possible. And that's kind of what I'm this is absolutely what I do with my clients. But it's like, well, what's possible when we unshackle ourselves from all of the beliefs, all of the conditioning, like all of the trauma, like all of the emotional baggage, all the things that have trapped us in what we think is possible and what we live into. And bit by bit, layer by layer, we shed and we remove that, and it's like we start to sand it down and buff it and polish it. And then all of a sudden you realize that like you're living into a different reality because you're not tethered to your past reality. Whoa, I just got chills. Whoa, you might need to rewind and re-listen to that because that's some powerful stuff. So I think that's about it. Final things, I just put together a list of all my favorite travel supplements. And if you guys are interested in that, let me know. I'll post, I'm just going to put a link to a Google Doc. How about that? Because as I've been traveling, especially in times of COVID, to me, it would be silly not to focus on my immune system. I mean, you need to do that anyway when you're traveling. So I was invited by a friend. She asked me if I could, she's traveling soon, if I could send her my travel supplement list. So I put that together and sent it to her and thought, well, why limit? You guys can have that too. So I'll put a link in the show notes to the Google Doc. Really not fancy and not formal, but it's project your life. I don't want to have to make that more complicated, but I would love for you to have access to that. So all the links to my favorite travel supplements are in there. And yeah, I've just been taking really good care of myself. And now that I'm home from Mexico on Wednesday, I believe I'll be starting a parasite cleanse. Always a good idea once a year, but definitely after international travel. So I'll do a parasite cleanse, and that will also involve not having alcohol and just a simplified diet for, 14 days. And then I gear up and head to Block Island, Rhode Island. It's a teeny tiny little island off of Rhode Island, and I will be there for 10 days. The first week I'm taking a full-on vacation, like no Voxer, no emails, no coaching, just like taking a week off of like mental rest. And then the second week I'm going to work from the beautiful beach house. So really excited about that. And that's like my last trip of the year. And I actually feel really happy about that as well. It's been a lot of travel, and I'm also excited to come home, settle. Fall is my favorite season, and really put my energy and attention into creating my cloffice. I might be joining a really fun, exciting relationship program, and it's like stepping into your feminine and just cooking, nourishing meals, and caring for my family and myself. And that's kind of what I'm seeing into my future. So thank you so much, as always, for listening. And I hope it wasn't too presumptuous to just like give you a download of like where I'm at. I've been back on Instagram a little bit more at Dana_Evans. So if you've been following me, you've seen a little more activity there. But I thought this was a really good time to just give you a download of the dish, right? Dana's download. I also am really, I've talked about this, but I have a ton of GoPro footage from both the Lake Tahoe trip and the Mexico trip, and I really want to get a vlog together. It's just, that's a little more challenging for me. So stay tuned. They might be delayed, but they're still going to be really fun to see the footage of those trips. And yeah, if you're interested in working together and doing deep dive, either a 1-month version of Insight or the 3-month full version, send me an email, dana@alignful.com, shoot me a message on Instagram. If I have the application, I'll put it in the show notes. Otherwise, shoot me an email and I would send it over to you, or we can just jump on a short call because I'm so excited for you. I am so it makes me cry to think about the massive shifts that people are having in their lives when we work together, and what's possible for you when you choose to slow down, create some space, and dust off the dirty corners of life. Oh, sending so much love to all of you. Happy freaking August. Happy new moon. Happy magic, magic, magic in your life. And until next time, our next 2 episodes, as I said, I will record one about gear shifting in and out of vacation mode and how I see that what I'm seeing as what's necessary for travel and vacation versus like the traditional setup that we live into right now, especially right now. And this really deep episode about turning to yourself for answers and relief versus others. And I have quite a few experiences where I've done just that when my mind really wanted to go to the other. And it's been really powerful. So stay tuned for that in the coming weeks. And otherwise, I will see you on Instagram. All right, have a great week. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tuning In podcast. As always, if this would resonate with anyone you know, please share the episode. You can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans, or find me on my website at alignful.com.